All right, it is Friday. The Blue Jays are in Oakland. They are 2 games under 500. After a split with the Baltimore Orioles, it's Blair, it is Barker. John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, joins us.
Get to the bottom of all
in
this
a few
stuff.
minutes to get to the bottom of all this
Every
stuff.
single bit of it.
Now, Davidi has reported that one Spencer Horwitz is in Oakland with the
Season
Blue
starts
Jays.
today. Yes.
I mean, I'm sure the Jays had a conference call yesterday that lasted 3.5 hours, and they finally made the decision. To pull
him up to Toronto.
pull the trigger on a deal. Ross Atkins found a GM he could trust himself.
Be nice. What's wrong with you?
Anyhow, so Spencer Horwitz is, according to Davidi, with the Blue Jays, and if he is to be activated, there will, of course, have to be a corresponding move, which is where it gets interesting. I think most people just assume that Daniel Vogelbach will be sent out. There are indications that perhaps the Jays will go in another direction.
Yeah.
I mean, we shall see. We'll ask John Schneider, and I don't know if he's going to. I don't know. And of course, the other piece of news is hopefully we get an update.
Yeah, I think
they got Manoah today.
I think they have two DHs. One's left-handed and one's right-handed. Vogelbach is the left-hander. I would think you would pick from one of the position players. That's either Kevin Biggio or Ernie Clement. Which one do you not like? That I think's the question.
Can I just ask? Okay, why? If I'm bringing Spencer Horwitz up.
Well, I mean, he's playing second. He's an infielder. One of them's got to go, but I'm assuming that both have options.
Right. Why would I care about Daniel Vogelbach?
I don't know.
Why would I choose a guy who has no position and basically does one thing?
2 things. He's a great teammate. I've been waiting all day to say that. All day.
Or a guy who can play 3 or 4 positions.
I am leading the Kevin Biggio fan club, and I'm not saying that's who it is, but I'm saying they got just a couple of options, and we just said their names out loud, so it will be very intriguing to see how they go. And it is funny that Kevin hasn't been playing lately.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, he has not been playing. We made a point yesterday of talking about the decision not to pinch hit for Ernie Clement. Yeah, it turned out the right decision, and it's entirely possible that was one of those sort of bat path that there are underlying numbers behind it, and that's why they went with Ernie Clement. But that's fine; it worked out. But one would think that if you were going to use a lefty hitter, that might be the time to do it, a lefty pinch hitter. But again, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Kevin Biggio's been here for,
quite some time.
When the Jays did this thing, I can't remember how many years ago it was, where they took all their minor league prospects to the, it was either the U.S. Rangers Academy or the Navy SEALs Academy or something for a team building thing. He was part of that group. But anyhow, I mean, there's no point in. It's just if in fact Spencer Horwitz is with the team, then a move has to be made, and you wouldn't. I mean, I guess Ernie Clement. Quite frankly, Ernie Clement to me is I like having him as a 25th, 26th guy because he can play a couple of infield positions for me, and I know he's made a couple errors this year, but by and large, I'm not gasping or holding my breath when Ernie Clement gets the ball hit to him. But anyhow, we shall see.
I mean, John's on at 4:30. We will ask.
Yes. Now, 4:30 is 1:30 in Oakland. So there is a chance that the Jays will not be ready to make that announcement. But
that doesn't mean we're not going to ask.
No, it doesn't mean that. In fact, it means we might have to ask 1 or 2 questions as a follow-up.
Yeah.
In order to squeeze some stuff out of him.
Yep.
We will be going to the back leg line today. It is Friday, 416-413-3959. Your thoughts on the Jays as they are 2 games under 500. And, let's look ahead to this let's look ahead to this road trip. They have 3 in Oakland against the A's, and then they go on to face the Milwaukee Brewers, who, the Brewers just seem to be
National League race.
Yeah. And that is a way to put it. That's exactly what they are. They are the National League Rays. They have the secret sauce. It's not the manager. He's moved on to Chicago.
No.
They keep going. They do something right. They got something going on.
Yep.
So that is the
Kool-Aid.
Pardon me?
Drinking a different Kool-Aid than everybody else is.
Well, it is. Yeah, we keep waiting for them to fall off the face of the earth, and they keep making the playoffs. You can't put it any other way. So the Jays have, 3-game series against Milwaukee? Yeah, 3-game series against Milwaukee. One of those is an afternoon game on Wednesday, and then they're home to face the Cleveland Guardians. So tonight it'll be Chris Bassett against Hogan Harris. Tomorrow it will be Kevin Gossman against Louis Medina. And Mitch Spence will start for the A's in Game 3. No starter yet for the Blue Jays. It could go any way. It could be, are you looking again at a Trevor Richards opening situation?
I would think it depends on how the first 2 games go. I'm sure Trevor is available the first 2 games because they're going to try and win every single game they can possibly win, and then they'll try and figure out Sunday's game whenever Sunday gets here.
If you need Trevor Richards to win the first 2 games of the series, you take Trevor Richards to win the first.
No question.
And we'll figure it out.
There you go.
You may start Bowden, France. We'll figure it out.
It's
we'll
open.
figure it
out. I hate to continue to say it that way. And there's a couple of players for Oakland you got to be careful with. And then there's everybody else on their team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just see here if I got. I'm just waiting to see.
But Chris Bassett needs to have better games. The sinker's been getting hammered for him not living on the edges as much as he's lived on the past. Because of those 2 reasons, he's not getting as much swing and miss. It's just like the flow of him trying to release the baseball. The last 2 or 3 starts just haven't been there, right? It's like he's shaking and wondering and just you can see contemplating and like a little bit more than normal, and I think just getting on the same page and, sort of just getting in the flow and getting – in his lanes and finding that right release point, right? You could actually see him visibly saying, find your lane. Like he's even hitting himself in the head with his glove in the dugout. Yeah. Like, he's working on some things. He's searching for some things. And, hopefully it starts with the sinker. That sinker's a big deal. That thing's been getting hammered. They're, the league's hitting 369 off that thing. So start there, if he can locate that thing up.
The cutter's been a good pitch for him. This is an interesting stat. We've talked about the Jays' issues with home runs.
Second most in baseball.
Right. He allowed 6 in his first 6 starts. He's allowed 1 in his last 6 starts. And if you go back to May 1st, amongst pitchers, fewest home runs allowed per 9 innings pitched since May 1st. It's a minimum of 30 pitches. 0.26. He's third. He's behind Christopher Sanchez and Tanner Houck. The numbers have been a lot better in his last 6 starts.
It's more about the pitches per inning.
Yes.
It's more about the pitches per batter. It's more about the batters per inning. He's
throwing the third most pitches in a game.
He needs to get deeper into the game. To do that, you got to be more efficient, right? Action in those 3 pitches. It seems like he can get to 2 strikes in a hurry. But then once he gets to 2 strikes, then what? Like where am I going? Am I elevating the fastball? Am I throwing the cutter? Am I trying to take the sting out? It's almost like he's aiming that. He's trying to be too fine with that instead of just having the game plan, knowing what the guy don't like with 2 strikes, attacking that. Don't nibble with it. Aim big, right? And trust the stuff, trust the mechanics. It just seems like he's, for whatever reason, haven't been able to do that. We'll ask John about that. That's, something that's strike one's more important, right? I think he, lately hasn't been real good at that. So it's just the totality of everything he's doing on the mound just seems to be a little out of whack. How do you get it back in there, figure it out, and just start doing what he's been doing? I think it starts there. Again, they are still a starting pitching team. Whatever that dude's doing, they seem to set the tone, allow that lineup to do whatever that lineup's going to do. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he starts this road trip off the way it's supposed to be started off.
Yeah, it is kind of a return home for him too, with the Oakland Athletics. But look, there's no doubt that we've talked about how good the pitching has been, and this still is a pitching slash defense team first. But it has been the pitching, because the offense has been so bad. I think we sometimes, almost out of necessity, overlook the fact that there has been what I would call some softening in the pitching, and that's understandable.
No
You weren't going to run it back, or you weren't going to have the
Yeah.
same results this year that you did last year. Guys are older. The bullpen. I mean, at some point, everybody's whatever magic they're using as a reliever. At some point, it wears off, and that's kind of
They've given up
that's
83
kind of where
homers.
we are with the Blue Jays.
That's one behind the White Sox.
That's a lot of.
That's
home
not
runs.
good enough.
That's a
Like,
lot of home
They
runs.
give up a ton of big ones like that. And we're going to ask John. I'm going to ask John about that too. Like, how do you correct that? I know it's about execution and not trying to be so fine, but man alive, 83 ton of home runs.
And this
Like,
is
you
at a
just
time.
can't-
This is
can't
at a
win
time
that.
where offense is down in baseball.
Yeah, well,
you know,
the Jays
for the most
offense.
part. No, offense in general in baseball is down.
They're not going to win consistently giving up that many homers, so they need to play better. Again, use your defense. How do you take the sting out of that bat? Like that locating, that, that not being so predictable, that later movement on your secondary stuff, that knowing the plan with 2 strikes and executing the plan. I know they're trying to do it. It's not lack of effort. It's just they ain't getting it done. So, they got some corrections here. If they want to go on a little run, right, they're sort of set up here, Jeff, to get above 500, gain a little confidence. You're coming off that. Like, they were getting embarrassed the first 2 games at home against the Orioles. Embarrassed. They were getting stomped on. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they turned it around. They got a couple of good starts, right? Vladdy looks like he's starting to get the ball in the air and backspinning some things. That's, what if he starts hitting a bunch of homers? That's going to sort of turn everything around, make it a little easier for everybody. So, yeah, they got a little room right here to figure some things out, gain some confidence, and start having some momentum working down that hill instead of ever always being able or starting to look up all the time. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that happens and everything falls into place.
Yes, as we mentioned, the Jays coming off that series split against the Baltimore Orioles, and they are 2 games under 500. We'll be joined by Vince Cotroneo. He's the Oakland A's play-by-play broadcaster. As I mentioned, the back leg line, 416-413-3959. We're attempting to check in with some folks in the Bronx as well. Big series this weekend, Yankees and Dodgers. The Yankees expected to be without Juan Soto, who had an MRI. And the results of the MRI were probably just about as best as you could possibly expect. He has a left elbow inflammation. Make sure I say this. He had left forearm discomfort. An MRI showed, left forearm inflammation. And this is from John Heyman reporting it. That's the MRI. Soto's also seeing a radiologist for assurance. He didn't play. Is not going to be in the lineup tonight, obviously, for the Yankees as they take on the Dodgers. If you're wondering, he is leading the American League, 318, 17 homers, 53 ribbies in 64 games. So the Yankees will be going into this series without Soto, and it is, what the narrative will be, because all of the discussion in New York is how on earth are the Yankees going to sign Juan Soto and Garrett Cole? If the Yankees go out and get swept by the Dodgers in this series without Juan Soto, people are going to, that just shows you how important Juan Soto is to the lineup.
Sweep?
If they sweep, then everybody, It is funny how that happens. It is, and that will be a narrative. 3 games is a small sample size and everything, but I mean, you got Juan Soto to beat the teams like the Dodgers in the postseason. Anyhow, it'll be it will be interesting. And again, that the news, it was funny. Ken Rosenthal was on. It was on one of the YouTube things that he does today. But he mentioned that the Yankees, the language used originally in the injury was the same language that was originally used, I think he said, for the Garrett Cole injury, and it was just so Yankees people, their heads are exploding, right? Mm-hmm. But it looks again, depending on that trip to the radiologist, it certainly looks as if it's nothing nothing serious for Juan Soto and the Yankees. But it is too bad because I was looking forward to seeing.
Me too.
I was looking forward to seeing that series, to seeing the Yankees at full strength.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously without Garrett Cole, but seeing the Yankees at full strength against the Dodgers was going to be quite something.
It's on Apple TV tonight too. So there you go.
I mean,
there you
folks
go.
at Apple ain't dumb. They picked the game.
I guess
They got the right game. You gonna watch it?
not a chance. Because I'd have to. I'm not sure if I have Apple, or I don't think I do have Apple. If I don't have Apple, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I have the MLB package. I can watch it on that.
Yeah. I'll be watching it. That'll be a good battle. So, we'll await John Schneider in a few minutes. And again, the back leg line, 416-413-3959. Any thoughts out of that Baltimore series, something we may not have touched on in particular or not overlooked, but I think we obviously Vladdy's return, if you want to call it that, I thought was really really significant.
I think Kirk's bat looking quicker is a big deal. Danny Jansen looks like he's taking a little step back. That might be because he's having to play 5 days a week. That I'm going to ask John about that too.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the best out of Danny having to play him 5 days a week, and maybe watching Kirky's bat look the way it's looked when he's been playing? I mean,
of course, the problem is that the bat is faster because he's not playing much.
I'm not saying playing 4 days a week, but maybe don't play Danny 5 days a week. Like there's a fine line here. If you want to get the best out of both of them, how do you do it? I mean, there's khakis running all over the place for the Blue Jays. Figure it out. Like that's what I'm trying to say is that was an obvious thing that stood out is just how quick his bat was. Because if he needed a situation, right, if I needed to get a guy over, nobody on, standing at second base, I could hit a fly ball to right because my bat was quick enough. Let the ball travel, see the ball up. Ball's up and away. I can let it travel because I can have that little extra, inch of travel. I'm hitting the ball where I want it to go because I'm quick enough to be able to do that. So that's one of the things IKF's having some, quality situational at bats. That runner at third, less than 2 outs. That's a big deal, right? I mean, they just have not been good at that. They've been one of the worst teams in baseball. So there are some positives.
I thought about this. I went back and looked at Danny Jansen. Okay, this is his per game. Okay, he went 1 for 3 on May 17th, 2 for 4, 3 for 5, 0 for 3, 2 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 1, 2 for 5, 0 for 5, 2 for 6, 0 for 4, 2 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 3. I mean, literally, now for what? How many games are we looking at here? Basically, he either gets multiple hits or no hits.
He's 4 for his last 30 is all I know. And his bat looks a little slower, and it's something they got to pay attention to. Squatting can't be the easiest thing. Trying to get a pitching staff through games who have been really, really struggling keeping the ball in the yard can't be the easiest of things. And then they're asking it hits, second or cleanup or wherever they're penciling him in. He ain't hitting 7th or 8th or 6th anymore. It's top of the order. Mm-hmm. It's a lot to ask. I mean, mentally, physically, it's just a lot to put. That's why you don't see a ton of catchers hitting at the top of the order the way they're trying to expect Danny to do it. I mean, obviously, we all know why.
Yeah, we're not sitting here criticizing the decision. He's
4 for his last 30. It's a thing. So that's another thing we can ask John is how do you try and get the best out of both of them? So that was a couple of things. And Chad Green, that elevated fastball, that's not looking too bad. I mean, his last 4 outings, they've looked pretty good. Other than the couple of walks leading off the inning there a couple of games ago, when he needed to make a pitch on the elevated fastball and tunnel the slider off of that, he's been able to do it. He's a giant human. It's very hard, right? It's hard if you're hitting. Normally, I'm looking at you at the camera. Now I have to look up because he's so tall and he releases the ball way up there. It's hard to tell north and south. That's why that elevated fastball, there's a small little window right there. If he can keep it in that and not have it so non-competitive, now you feel comfortable him coming in the 8th and 9th inning against the meat of the order. So that's another thing we need to ask John. It's just, there are some positives here. It's what I said. You take this a series at a time. You don't look forward anymore with this team. They're just
that's a great point.
They're not 26, people good enough always to look. Okay, we're gonna sweep this series, and then 3 series from now, we're going to be right here where we want to be. They're just, for me anyway, they're not, shouldn't say good enough, but right now the quality of their at-bats, their pitches, their base running, their defense is just not good enough to look that far ahead. So, yeah, I think, again, they're doing enough positive things to make you want to actually pay attention. And I've said this, and I said this last night to anybody that wanted to listen. If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. starts hitting homers, he could save people's jobs.
Yep.
That's how good he is. And I'm not saying he's going to do that, but the at-bat, the ball's flying the other way, the little uppercut in his finish, we ain't seen that in a while. Now, whether that's the bat's shorter, whether he's moving around the batter's box, whether he's feeling, just mentally free at the plate. But what if he starts doing that?
I want you to go over. I want you to go over that a little bit again. Pardon me, because we talked about it. We had Caleb Joseph on yesterday's Blair and Barker talking about Vladdy using a bat that's half an inch shorter. It's Teoscar Hernandez's bat. And could you maybe just take a couple of minutes to explain to people? People are going to go, yes, I know it's a game of inches, but half an inch is a half an inch. So explain to people what impact that might have on Vladdy.
That's a difference between a ground ball to the shortstop or the third baseman or a line drive to left center. That's the difference. It's a game of inches. It's point of contact. I'm trying to change that. He's moved a little bit back.
And this is what you talk about all the time, changing the point of contact.
Absolutely. If I'm jamming myself on the same location a lot, I'm going to move around. It's up to me to make the adjustment. Something's not allowing me to get barrel to ball. If I move around a little bit in the box, just changes everything and makes it feel different. Like it frees me up enough to let it travel maybe a little bit more, or, lay off of that to where I can force it away from me a little bit, just so now my path is shorter and quicker. And now because that bat is just a little shorter, that now instead of me hitting the barrel, closer to the label, which is jamming me a little bit, now I'm hitting that thing in the sweet spot. And because my name on the back of the jersey is Guerrero Jr., when I'm hitting the sweet spot, it's a Khakis dream. So, yeah, that's sort of, the gist of why you do it. It's not you just do it just to be doing it. You do it because, first of all, you got a buddy that's done it before and it's worked. Here you go, man. I tried this before. It worked. Worked for me. Like it, just makes me feel different. Like I can get the balls that I normally can't get to because now I'm hitting them on the sweet spot instead of missing the sweet spot by an inch on the end of the bat or an inch closer to the label, right? I want to hit it in the middle of that. Bat's an inch shorter. It's not rocket science. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it makes – and what it does, it just gives you that little bit of confidence to now where, if I can lay off of something I don't like and get it a little different area – because now I can consistently hit the sweet spot, good things are going to happen.
All right.
And maybe I'll start hitting more homers.
What would be the difference? Again, this is someone who hasn't played the game at a high level. But, we know that Russ Martin always used to talk about in the summer. Sometimes he'd go with a lighter bat because he
catcher.
Right.
Tired.
Workload. Difference between choosing a lighter bat versus choosing a shorter bat. What would make me decide between the two?
Yeah,
if you understand what I'm asking.
Absolutely. Well, if I'm having trouble hitting velocity, I would go with a lighter bat.
Right.
If I want to say I'm facing a guy who throws a bunch of breaking balls and I want to let that travel, I would use a lighter bat. Like where I can now let it travel, be a little quicker with my snap. Yeah. Instead of having to have that like I'm really trying to force it in the zone and keep it in the zone like I normally would. Like a Ryan Howard used a giant bat, like a Babe Ruth bat. Like that thing was like you'd have to pick it up with two hands. Most humans can't do that because all he's trying to do is just drop it. It's basically like using gravity. If I can get it started on time, the size of it and the weight of it will do all the work for me. I won't have to force it. And I just use my hips to rotate it through the zone. Most humans can't do that. Mm-hmm. So now you're thinking about what you're trying to do against a certain guy and what you're not doing against a certain pitch or certain location. It's very specific. You ain't doing it just to be doing it. You're doing it because you're having trouble with something, and it oozes confidence in you. I'm standing on the on-deck circle. Now I'm oozing confidence before I walk to the plate, and that's half the battle or 90% of the battle.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It
makes total sense, don't it?
It really, yeah.
It does.
Well, it does.
So simple, but
does.
it makes
It's very
total
simple.
sense.
It makes sense, and clearly for Vladdy, it appears to be paying off. John Schneider is manager of the Blue Jays. He'll join us next from Oakland. Don't go anywhere. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. The Jays are in Oakland to start a 3-game series against the A's. 9:40 first pitch.
You ever been in that park?
Yes, several times.
Is it as bad as everybody says it is?
I mean,
You were there when it was nicer? Or no?
no.
It's always been this bad?
I mean, there's a long story about it, but I mean, at one point it was a really nice ballpark until Al Davis was given control of it, and he filled in the entire outfield stands for football, and it was one of the best views in baseball.
Okay.
And it's I mean, I hate to say it, but it is a hole. I mean,
awful,
it is.
Huh?
There's
It's awful now.
There's critters. There's lots of critters.
Oh, it's too bad.
Like
It's Major League Baseball.
I know.
It's
I've
bad.
I have been in that park and had a rat run across the front of the press box where I was sitting.
Did you guys arm wrestle over your sandwich?
It's bringing John Schneider, manager of the Blue Jays. I want to.
John,
that's
awesome. Yeah, sorry about that, John.
Hey, he's not wrong.
No, it's not quite as bad as I remember the last few years of the Astrodome. That when I was covering the Expos, the players always put their shoes up in the top of their locker.
Yeah.
They didn't leave it down low because they were scared that
Critters.
critters.
You can never be too careful. Yeah.
No, it is the major leagues though. Hey, thanks as always for doing this. So, I mean, let's get right to, I was going to say, let's get right to business here. We like to do that. But Shai Davidi's reported that Spencer Horwitz is with the team. I don't know what you can tell us on his availability, what move has been made, if a move has been made, and what the thinking would be involved in that move.
Can't tell you anything right now. Still kind of working through everything. Nothing official yet. That's kind of all I got on it right now. But I may have a little bit more a little bit later today.
Okay. Having said that, I know that you guys look, it's been clear you've been following. People have been talking about Spencer Horwitz, the organization. Again, without state secrets here, what has he done? What have you guys seen him do this year that he maybe hasn't done in previous seasons?
I think it's been pretty similar to what he's done with a little bit more power. I think that's the difference. I think he's a little bit more comfortable defensively, both first and second. And, just the on base is obviously huge. That's kind of been his thing over the course of his career, especially the last couple of years. So I think the on base and the power is kind of what you're looking at too.
All right. John, why can't your team score in the first inning? It's 20. I mean, that to me is one of those things that just has to be fluke. I mean, it has to be.
Yeah, I think we're second in the league in runs in the second inning. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, if it gets any farther, I'm just going to switch the 4, 5, 6 are going to go 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 3. But it's weird. It's a fluke thing. You're getting the pitcher's best stuff, obviously, in the first inning. We've had chances. I think Varsh hits a double or a triple the other day, and we didn't get him in. It's weird. You know what I mean? I don't think that you can put too much into it. It is a fluke thing. A lot of these pitchers too, it's, first time you see them and, like yesterday, it kind of takes a time through the order to get used to someone. As much work as you do and machine work and project and all this kind of stuff, you got to kind of feel what the pitcher's doing that day. And it's been a weird thing for sure. Yesterday, I told Davis just to see a strike and go deep, just hit one out, get us on the board. He struck out, but it's a weird thing. Weird thing for sure.
I would think too. I mean, there are some things that you can. I'm not going to say waste your time looking at, but are there still some things that defy analysis in the game? Just some things you just go. I mean, you can throw all the math at it you want and whatever, and it's just you just throw your arms up and go. We got a game tonight. Let's try not to make it 30. I mean, that's about all you can do.
It's the beauty of playing every day. And this game's weird, just when you think that, someone's not going to come through, or this is a tough matchup for us or them. They, guy hits a home run or strikes out the side. You try to be as consistent as you can with putting guys in spots and all that kind of stuff. And the game's weird. The game's different every single night. And guys aren't worrying about, the first inning thing. Obviously, yeah. I mean, you want to get on the board. And it gets a little bit around the clubhouse, and there's been some jokes, but they're not worried about it, which is a good thing.
John, whenever Vladdy is hitting the ball to the opposite field with authority, is he doing anything different?
No, I think where he's being pitched a little bit, I mean, just pitches that he's swinging out over the plate, it is encouraging when he's hitting the ball like he did yesterday for the home run and the ball off the wall. It's encouraging that he is synced up. His toe tap, his swing path is synced up. I mean, we've seen it enough. I've seen it enough from out of him over the years. When he's doing that, when he's not in sync, I think you see a ground ball to short there or a pop up or something like that. So that was huge swing yesterday. His at bats have been phenomenal over the last couple of weeks, and I think the home runs are going to kind of start to follow as you see him stay in that part of the field.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge for Bo at the plate this season?
Part of it's probably looking for his swing. The thing with Bo is when his swing is on, he's going to cover everything. You know what I mean? And pitchers are pitching him. They're pitching him in a little bit more because of his ability to shoot the ball to right field or drive the ball to right field. So I think it was just with Bo, it's just kind of a combination of timing between those two things. Part of it feeling for his swing, not anymore, I don't think. And then just kind of where he's being pitched. So encouraged by his last couple games, although the results weren't quite there for Bo's standards. But again, I've said it all along, track record that he has, it's about as sure things you're going to get that Bo's going to hit. And, we obviously need him to.
John, do you think, he's a very aggressive hitter? We all know that. We've seen him. He likes to swing it. He ain't going to take, right? I'm in swing mode all the time. Do you think he mentally is one of those people, because he is a swinger, that can say, okay, for whatever reason, I'm just not getting to all those parts. I have to look right down the middle for just a little while. You think he's capable? Because when he is looking right down the middle, I think the last couple of days he's gotten some hits and balls right down the middle. Do you think he's capable of laying off of all that other stuff and trying to force him in the middle of the zone?
I think he is, and people don't hear how much he talks about it. It's it's like a 3-point shooter. They always say shoot or shoot, right?
Yeah.
Hit or swing. That's kind of like Bo. I'm going to swing until I feel right. But I think there are some times where you can flip in a bat to where you see the foul balls that are a tick up or a tick outside of the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's close, but it's not quite there, or it could have been 1-0, things like that. That's stuff he's working on all the time. And, hitting is just hitting mistakes, you know what I mean? Whether it's us or the other team. So he's just got to be ready for those mistakes. And I think that's kind of where he was a little bit with the swing. And, when the swing wasn't quite there in his mind, he was probably getting more mistakes. Now the swing feels better and he's getting less and less. So just a matter of time till it evens out, I think.
John, Kevin and I were talking about Danny Jansen and looking at, I think he's 4 for his last 30. But if you look at he either gets multiple hits in a game. Recently, it seems he's 2 for 4, or 2 for 5, or he's 0 for 4. Are you still trying to find the balance between Jano and Alejandro Kirk when it comes to rest versus playing? And I guess what I'm saying is, could that change a little more in the next week or so? Because Kirky does. I understand Kirky seems fresher because he's not playing as much, and you've got to balance that. But could you see that maybe readjusting a little bit?
I think so, yeah. And Kirky's been, quietly much more, a closer version to himself from a couple of years ago in a couple of weeks. What they both do behind the plate, I love. I know Kirky, grades out as a elite pitch framer, receiver, blocker, as does Jano. But yeah, I could see it to try to keep them both fresh. There's a fine line between riding a hot hand and then riding it too long until that hot hand doesn't become hot anymore. Mm-hmm. And trying to kind of stick with the norms that we've been doing. I think it keeps them both healthy. I think it keeps them both productive. And, for a while, Jano was carrying us, so you want to try to take advantage of it. But it is tough to kind of know when to pull the reins a little bit and just say, okay, we got to make sure that both guys are staying involved in the right spots and things like that. But I could see it adjusting back to a little bit more of how it's been.
John, what do you think the
in the
pitching? Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the pitching staff as a whole has to do to control the home runs they've been giving up?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, I mean, they're going to happen. They're going to happen. With starters, you're throwing, call it 100 pitches a day, and you're just trying to minimize mistakes. And you just got to look at your pitches. I think that in this day and age, it's funny. We've got guys have such good stuff, and they throw the ball so hard. Starters and relievers, you can get away with stuff in the middle of the zone. Now, I think you can get away with it more often as a reliever than you do as a starter, just because you're seeing less of that pitcher. But it comes down to, I think us, like every organization, it's get ahead and then try to take the ball out of the zone a little bit more as you get more strikes. Sometimes when you're trying to do that, you're trying to make too good of a pitch, you hang it, hitters feast on that. Sometimes you talk about it so much, you end up doing it. When we're talking about, hey, we want to go strike the ball with the slider, or we want to go back to a breaking ball and you yank it middle. So it's just coming down to making pitches, just understanding that every pitch is important. And it doesn't matter who you're facing. It doesn't matter what team or what player you're facing. These guys are all good. So every pitch has to have a purpose, and you're just trying to limit those mistakes.
Chad Green looks predictable. What do you think's changed other than he's healthy now?
Not much. Not much. Healthy. His stuff is basically the same every time out. He's done that over his whole career, whether it's here in New York. You know exactly what you're going to get for the most part when he's out there. So I think just being himself, being healthy, a guy we're going to rely on. It's been awesome to have him back, and you forget how much you really, really enjoy having him when he's not there, and then he gets back and kind of picks up where he left off.
What are the plans for Sunday starter right now? I see that it's TBA. Does that depend very much on how the first two games of this series go? And I'll also ask you if you have an update in Alec Manoah. I know he went to visit Dr. Meister, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
Have you got an update in that, and what are your plans for Sunday right now?
Yeah, for Sunday, it's still kind of to be determined based on how tonight and tomorrow go. Could be a similar look to what we did last turn through. And then as far as Alec, we will probably have more information later today, either right before or after the game. Just getting in touch with all the medical people, doctors, our medical people, and just sorting through that. So we'll have an update later today on him.
John, what does Chris have to do tonight to give you a good start and some length? I know that's sort of the thing, right? Is not 5 innings. How does he give you 7 and sort of be the Chris that we all are used to seeing?
Yeah, back in his old stomping grounds here. He needs to throw all of his pitches. When he's throwing curveball and sweeper and not getting it was funny, his last outing, he was so strong and stuff was so good. I think he was trying to overpower hitters, which is not his game at all. He can at times. But when he's mixing everything and keeping hitters back and forth in between with soft, hard, he's really damn good, And when you have that and when you're locating, he's the throwback pitcher to where he's trying to locate every single pitch, and every pitch has a purpose for him. If he's doing that, he's going to be just fine. He's a guy too. Pitch count doesn't really mean much to me, him or Pete. He's kind of, he's a pitcher. He's not a thrower. You know what I mean? He's not going to get exhausted out there, even though he looks like he is at times. But he's got to throw his pitches, man. When he's keeping hitters off balance and going back and forth, that's Chris's A game, and he gets deep into the ball game.
Any difference for you and Petey with Jimmy Garcia in the 9th inning solely now than with him being, the sort of the hybrid guy where you could throw him 6th, 7th, or 8th inning?
Yeah, for sure. Not huge. His stuff is his stuff, and I still think he's one of the best relievers in the game right now. But I think as you kind of go into that closer role, you're just being prepared for a little bit more. Teams are talking about you in the advance. Okay, this guy's closing. They'll look at your pitch patterns a little bit more in depth, I would say, and you have to be able to adjust in certain times. So the fact that he has 3 or 4 pitches, he has the ability to really kind of maneuver however he wants. Yesterday, he came out throwing more heaters, first and second pitch, than he has in the past. So it's just tweaking, I think, kind of patterns that you can get into when you're pitching in other situations when kind of goes under the radar a little bit. But it is cool that he's, available for 4 outs or 5 outs. You know what I mean? We can still use him in that capacity too, but talk to him a little bit about kind of just pitch patterning, things like that.
Yeah, it's last one, John, before we let you go. It's great stuff. What's it say about your team after you got, you got stomped the first 2 games against the Orioles. They're a really, really good team. And then you didn't. Like, I know this is a marathon, not a sprint. And, you got a short-term memory, but you still got stomped. I mean, that can't be the easiest thing in a clubhouse and where you guys are at in the standings and what your record is. What's it say about your team, John, to come back like they did?
A lot. Again, I said it yesterday. I couldn't be, more proud of the way they came back. You walk off a team and you walk off a, probable Hall of Fame closer. And then the next day you come out, you score, big homer from Vladdy. You add on runs between Izzy and Ernie. It was awesome. That's a damn good team. They can score in a hurry. And their pitching is a lot better than it has been over the years. But the first two, they were tough, and I think especially the second one, it was like, okay, damn, there's a difference between getting beat and losing, and we got beat, you know what I mean? So for the guys to come back, really compete in that third game and then walk it off, and then, their mindset after the second game, it was cool to hear just talking before the game on Wednesday. It was just like, all right, hey, we got a chance to split, and this is what we're doing. This is how we're thinking. So it is cool that you play every day. It is hard when things don't go your way. You guys hear me say it all the time. You got to flush it, move on. It sounds so cliche. I get it. You know what I mean? But it's the beauty of playing every day. You got to do it again the next day. And if you win, you got to do it again the next day. It's hard. It's hard for the guys to do that every day. But to their credit, man, they battled their asses off, and I love the way we ended there.
Yep.
John, really good of you to
Great
do
stuff,
this as
buddy.
always, my friend. Go get him tonight.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
All right,
Thanks, man.
guys.
Good
Be
luck.
well.
You bet.
See you,
Thank you.
Thanks.
John Schneider, manager of the Blue Jays. They are in Oakland.
Yeah.
And Chris Bassett against Logan Harris tonight. Kevin Gossman against Luis Medina, and then TBA.
Hey, I give that dude credit. I mean, you can think what you want of John. I mean, he don't have to come on our show. And for him to come on here it's an open book. Yeah, we can ask him anything. He's never called me or texted me and said, "Don't ask me this," or "I'm not going to answer that. We're not talking about this." Never done that. It's an open book. So
Yeah,
I know a lot of people don't like to hear that and don't like John, but it takes some guts to come on here when the team's been the way the team's been and to answer every single question we ever ask. It's pretty cool to have him come on and actually be that way. So
yeah, and I
give him kudos.
I am going to remind people too that there is a 3-hour time difference. So John's media availability would be what? It's a 9.
3 hours from now.
Yeah.
4 hours from now.
So again, Shy is reporting that Spencer Horwitz is with the team. I wouldn't think you'd bring him up unless you were planning on using him. There would have to be another move. Logic would indicate that it would. I think Kevin pointed out. I guess maybe Ernie Clement, Kevin Biggio has options left. Daniel Vogelbach. Those would seem to be the guys who would be, who would be. I'm going to use the word in jeopardy, not in jeopardy, but who may be subject to being moved in order to get Spencer on. But we're not going to know about that until John's media availability. And quite frankly, the Alek Manoah news, a lot will depend on just on what the organization, what the next steps are with the organization.
Yeah.
And I would say this, I would normally when a team plays it cautious. First of all, I understand a team is not obligated to tell us anything about a player's injury. They're just not. But in the case of Alek Manoah, I can see if they would want to be extra careful with how they go about messaging this and what they end up doing because, you're conceivably looking at 2 messed up years in a row for a guy that, quite frankly, you need to be good.
Yeah, you can say it without saying it, right? I mean, you can just give enough. I think that's where they're at with Alek, and so fingers crossed. I root for him. I mean, he's tried. He's been trying to come back and do it the right way and work on his body and his mechanics and all those kind of things. And it looked like he was turning the corner a little bit. I know he had a rocky couple of starts, but again, they're a better team with him in the rotation.
Interesting thoughts from John about Jano and Alejandro Kirk. Yeah. And this is
the
thing. Things are going to be fluid. Things are going to be fluid all year. Nothing's going to be carved in stone. I would think when one guy wears down a little bit, the other guy's going to get an extra game here or there. It just it just keeps getting back to the idea, though. I keep thinking about this. Danny's a free agent at the end of the year, and I mean, you can't. Alejandro Kirk's not an everyday guy. He's never going to be an everyday guy, And it just keeps getting back to me to the value of having Danny Jansen there. But yeah, it's.
I think it tells you how
noticeable.
hard it is to catch every single day mentally and physically, and be a good
absolutely.
offensive player because of it. Danny's a good offensive player, right? If you know if you gave him 3 days a week of DHing, I think you'd see better numbers. But they can't afford to do that with the way Kirky's just not giving it to you most of the time. But there is a blueprint for Kirky. Like they now know exactly how they can get the best out of him. There's no doubt anymore. Like there ain't no guessing. There ain't sitting around and wondering. You know now. You've actually seen it play out with your own eyes. You don't have to plug it into a computer to know that. So again, I think it's a fine line between the both of them, right? You want to get Danny, you want Danny to be the best he can be, and you want Kirky when he does play to be the best he can be. So I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure that's, it's a lot to ask Danny to hit second and get a rotation and a bullpen that is sometimes all over the place. So. Yeah, hopefully they can figure it out. And again, I get back to this. If that first baseman starts thumping, boy, oh man, it's just everybody is just exhaling, and hopefully we'll get out of the way.
You think that first inning thing's a fluke? Are we at the
I don't
stage
think it
right
is
now?
now. I think it is until a team starts talking about it. And John let it out of the bag that they're poking fun and are actually talking about it. It's a thing now.
Yeah, but it's
a thing because Bo's not hitting.
But is it?
That's why it's a thing.
Okay, I was going to say,
if Bo was hitting, this would not be a thing because this would have been over 22 games ago. Yeah, when Bo's breaking, he's carrying it like he's setting the tone and right. It's a leadoff double. It's Vladdy doing his thing. It's a guy getting them over. It's the bats probably get better with less than 2 outs and a runner on third. And when Bo's not hitting. Everybody else sort of puts more pressure on themselves, and we've seen that pressure thing. We know how
John
that looks.
doing that.
Doing what?
Taking 4, 5, 6 and tossing them at the top of the order, and then
no, he'd lose 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you'd keep Vladdy where he is, but
no, he's joking. Get crazy, Jeff.
Desperate times.
Get crazy, Jeff.
Well, I mean, we're looking at Bichette, Springer, Vladdy. I mean, how different is that?
Springer's like 4 for his last 27 or 8. I mean, it's like the roller coaster of the $25 million man.
Yes. Vince Cotroneo, the A's play-by-play announcer, joins us in a few minutes. What's the worst ballpark you've ever played in
every
terms of
minor
just
league
being
park?
a pig? Yeah, there's got to be one that
every single one.
There's got to be one that was a bigger pigsty than the others.
Most of them.
Pick one.
The AAA team for Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, that's a really nice stadium, sold out every day. The Louisville stadium I played with the Reds in AAA was unbelievably awesome. They had chartered planes.
Yeah,
that's how awesome they were. Those are the 2 best parks I've ever played in. And then there's all the other ones. And all the other ones, they stink. I mean, it's again, there's not a lot. Maybe they've gotten better, but
yeah. Did you ever play in the Astrodome?
Yes, it stunk too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Mo played left field when I played there. You couldn't even see him. It's so dark. Yeah. It's so dark in left field. You couldn't even see the left fielder. You could hear Mo yelling, "I'm still out here." Yeah, it was awful.
It was something else.
It was something. But it's the big leagues. Who cares, man? It's.
I mean, the worst stadium that I've been in, Oakland would be Cleveland.
I've never been in Oakland. I've never been in Tampa, and it seems like those are the 2 worst.
The Municipal Stadium was awful in Cleveland. That was just awful. The old County Stadium in Milwaukee, I did not like. Love Tiger Stadium, old stadium, but love Tiger
Brewers'
Stadium.
old stadium that I played in stunk.
Yeah, it was.
It smelled really bad for some reason.
Smelled of old sausages.
It was
416-413-3959 is a back leg line. We'll go to that. Davidi's going to join us. Vince Cotroneo as well. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590. The Fan of Sportsnet. All right, it is Friday. This is Blair and Barker. Got another hour. Let's put this thing to bed.
Yeah.
9:40 is the first pitch tonight. Absolutely. Jays and the Athletics from, I don't even know what the hell they're calling that place anymore. I mean, it's gone through like 20 different names.
Everybody should be able to hit a home run in the big leagues and run around the bases. It's the greatest thing in the world, Jeff. I just thought about that. If you ever came back in a different life, I hope you get to do that. As a baseball player who hits a bunch of homers, can hit a homer in front of 50,000 people and run around.
Well, ain't going to be 50,000 people there in Oakland.
I didn't say Oakland, Vegas.
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. I was thinking about that whenever we were.
I mean, I appreciate you thinking about me in that light, but I got to tell you, if I get a do-over, and coming back as a ball player.
Soccer player. Yeah, of course. You are an elite athlete who can run 90 minutes without scoring a point. Is it a point or a goal? Oh, a goal. I'm sorry.
I'm just telling you, man. I'm going to come back and be doing it in a place, doing in a city like, Rome or London, one of the international cities. I don't want to be doing it in like some, Oakland or Seattle even. I don't want to do that.
No,
I want to be. I want to be doing it internationally.
Dude on the
I want to be doing it internationally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
you be a goalie or a scorer?
Huh? No, I wouldn't be. Nobody would be a goalkeeper.
No.
Oh, God, no. No chance in hell. No chance in hell.
They don't have to run a lot.
Oh, they don't have much of a chance at anything.
No, they don't. Penalty kicks. Good luck.
I'd like to be the overpaid guy who's always tearing up his knee and can't play.
Yeah.
That's what I would like.
Yeah, I played with a couple of those.
That's what I would like.
I did.
I like to do that.
I played with a couple of those.
I'd like to do that. That's I can't.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're going to be joined by Vince Cotroneo. He's the Oakland A's play-by-play broadcaster at the bottom of the hour. Shai Davidi, MLB insider with Sportsnet. He is in Oakland. Lucky man.
Oh, yeah.
He is in Oakland, and we will talk to him and see if he can unearth more information on the Spencer Horwitz mystery. Apparently, he is with the team. John Schneider, the manager, not tipping his hand today. Wouldn't tell us today.
No. I don't think he can tell. He can't tell us.
I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff. I mean,
there has to be a certain time of the day before you can let it out.
Yeah, we've been sort of speculating that Ernie Clement, Daniel Vogelbach, or Kevin Biggio might be one of the three, but we're just doing that because we can do it. It's sports talk radio, and nothing we say on here really is. Anyhow, 416-413-3959 is a back leg line. Your chance to leave comments, questions, observations for Kevin. Several people have taken advantage of the back leg line, such as Bob in Truro, Nova Scotia.
The Tampa Bay Rays just designated Harold Ramirez for assignments, and he's a pretty good hitter against left-handed pitching. I was just wondering, if you were the Jays, would you take a chance on him? Thank you.
I mean, they're trying to figure out what to do with Spencer Horwitz. Let's just let them get that done before we start tossing other players in there. Harold Ramirez was a Blue Jay.
Yeah.
He was a Pirate, I believe, at one point. And, I mean, he had some real good years for Tampa Bay. But, let's just, at this point.
I mean, the fringe player now, aren't we past that? Aren't we past that 24, 25th, 26 guy?
No, if you want to give me, if you want to give me a fringe reliever that might be able to fill a couple innings, different. I would look at it.
Yeah,
but
that's different. But man alive, we haven't seen enough of the guys that you have to. I mean, basically, John's trying to pocket hitters.
Yeah,
that's
actually true.
It's like. How do you do that? It's just every once in a while you got to line them dudes up and say they're really talented. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
It's just rarely that they can do that. I mean, I think it's time for them to start trying to get it done.
We're going to stay
in that direction.
We're going to stay. We're going to stay in the Maritimes. Go to Shediac, New Brunswick, one of my favorite places. Andy from Shediac. Yeah, it was Bob.
It was.
Just hearing the information you guys shared about the calling up of Spencer Horwitz, that's great. But one more move has to be made. That is bringing up Nathan Lucas and letting go, DFAing Kevin Biggio and Vogelbach. Then you have a starting lineup of Lucas in left, Varsho in center, Springer in right, IKF, Bo, Schneider at second base, and Junior. My platoon is the DH, where I have Horwitz against right-handers and Turner against left-handers. Turner's hitting this year, 349 against left-handers and only 196 against right-handers. Seems to be a pretty clear decision to be made. Hopefully that our general manager can do that. He's come somewhat forward, and to quote an old quote about giving in and what you think you should be doing, a man must be big enough to admit his mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, and strong enough to correct them. Hopefully he is strong. Bye.
There you go, Andy. Thanks. Kevin, remember those words.
Andy should work in the front office for the Blue Jays.
Andy
was all over.
Well, Andy makes him want to run through a wall right now.
Nathan
Lucas. I mean, again,
we're talking French guys again.
We're talking French guys. And if he's my
Maybe.
everyday outfielder, then I'm just I mean, I don't know what to I mean, and he's as old as the furniture. He's been here for like what has he been here 3 years or something like that?
Yeah, but
And
I think to Andy's point, Andy's sort of tired of seeing what's here.
yeah,
It's time to see something different. I think that's what Andy's point was.
I would flip that on its head.
That's what
I would say if you want to see something different, I'd rather have Addison Barger up here and just swing for the fences. I really would.
Yeah.
I really would. He's probably more of a prospect, if you want to call it that, than Nathan Lucas because of age. But I mean, Nathan Lucas he's been around here so long. I just think, and I don't mean to insult him, but I think he's an organizational guy. Every organization has a guy like that.
I sort of fell into that 4A thing. I think that may be how they look at him as a 4A player. I mean, it's the worst thing to be. I think I was a little bit in that. It takes one little rocket science scout to say, man, he looks like a 4A player, and then everybody sort of catches on, and you get real lazy, and you don't want to look at a player inside and out, and that's sort of how you determine on, they're not a AAA player, but they're not a big leaguer, so we got to name them something.
That's got to be.
We got to put some kind of label on them. Let's label them a 4A player. I mean, that's real original.
That's got to be so hard to be a guy who's in AAA hitting home runs or hitting 320.
And I hit a bunch of them.
And not getting
a bunch of them.
You could have been, if you should have been playing now, you'd be
hitting cleanup for the Blue Jays.
Well, maybe
leading off,
maybe fifth. Paul from Burlington, Ontario.
Hey, Paul.
I've been listening to all this garbage about how Bichette is not hitting. Turn his foot in, rotate the hip, whatever. It's all junk.
Oh wow.
Bo Bichette led the majors 2 of the last 4 years in hits, hitting out of the 2-hole, which is the only place Bo Bichette has not hit this year. They've had him hitting 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. They put him everywhere, but they haven't put him in the 2-hole, where he knows how to hit, it seems. And by the way, that's a specific way of hitting. You need a very good number 2 hitter, and he knows how to do it. Why don't they play him there?
Kevin?
Speak, Jeff. While I look up Bo Bichette's numbers, I'll give Paul the answer.
Okay, I think Kevin and I have both been on this before. That once Bo gets it going, I think he's going to be in the leadoff or number 2 spot. I think they're waiting for him to get it going, and at that point they make a move. That's all I got for you. I'm the guy who's been saying all along that I like Bo in the cleanup spot. I said that a couple of years ago. I just do. Now, Kevin, you've done some in-depth research in the last minute and a half that I've been babbling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
well,
I'll turn it over to you.
This is the reason why Bo Bichette's not hitting second. March, he hit 167. April, he hit 219. May, he hit 280 now. Like that's you're cooking with gravy there. And in June again, he's went to 130. Right? It's sort of a roller coaster, right? He's all over the map when it just comes to who they're trying to get up at the right time.
I think it's safe to say that if he were to do what Vladdy's starting to do now, you'd see him hitting second or leadoff.
Because they want to. It's not because John doesn't want to put him in one of those top 3 spots. It's just right now, he's just not getting enough hits to warrant that. And I think how big of the separation is between how he looks when he gets out than when he looks when he's getting a hit is so far apart now. He don't always look hitterish. It looks like sometimes his at-bats look like he's never picked up a bat before. And then other times, it's true. And then other times, it looks like Bo Bichette. They're trying to find more of that middle ground. And once they find that, I think, to Paul's point, that maybe they'll get him up to where they want him to be. And again, I really do think that's the reason why they haven't scored a run in 27. Was it 27 games?
28, 29?
A lot.
Are they going to 30? I don't know. It's a lot.
A lot.
I got it here. Let's go Sheldon and Richmond Hill while I find out what the number is.
Sheldon.
Looking at the batting averages of the Blue Jays, the starting outfielders, Varsho, Springer, and Kiermaier, are hitting 214 or less. The bench players, Kurt, Vogelbach, Biggio, and if you want to throw in Clement and Turner, nobody more than 234. The Jays have an offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They have a hitting coach. They have 2 assisting hitting coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Why is nobody talking anything about the coaches?
What?
Other leagues, if
He paused.
coaches
He
are
heard
doing
you
well,
yell at
they
him.
fire them, they bring somebody else in. Thanks. Love your show.
Thanks. Sheldon must not listen to our show.
Yeah, you
time,
haven't
does
listened
he?
to our show because we spend an awful lot of time talking about hitting coaches. And again, this is not, you fire the offensive coordinator in football and bring another guy in with a different offensive. I mean, that's not. That just doesn't work. You could fire the entire coaching staff, and tonight you're still going to be seeing the same guys out there. Having said that, look, as my friend, I'm sure Kevin's going to say, the point of emphasis in the offseason was how they were going to they were rethinking how their messaging, their communications, how they get stuff from the analytics dudes to the players, and I will say this front office put their hitting coaches out front in the offseason. That's all we heard. It's going to be, everything else, moves are interesting, but
not us, it's them.
It's them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
I just know this. It's very hard for 4 different guys to have the same message and say it the same way to every hitter.
Okay, but
it's very hard to do that.
Let's also be clear. I mean,
it's very hard. It's almost impossible.
If the Jays aren't the only team with an offensive coordinator. I mean, basically what's happened is every team in baseball now has multiple coaches, and they're just coming up with names. Because you can't say, hitting coach A, hitting coach B, hitting coach C. So you have a main hitting coach, then you got a hitting coach, and then you got auxiliary hitting coaches, all this stuff. It's the Jays aren't the Jays aren't the only team. The Jays are not the only team with multiple coaches for things.
Well, that's work. They're 14 and a half out in the first place. That's work.
But they're not, again, they are not the only team. There are teams that are having success that have multiple hitting coaches. There are teams that are having success that have associate managers. There are teams that are having success that have guys called offensive coordinators. Like, we just clearly either the information isn't good or it's not helping these guys be the best version of they can be, that they can be. But I mean, are the Jays looking at different numbers than everybody else in baseball? I don't know. I mean, there's everybody's got proprietary numbers. Everybody's got things they focus on. Players have things. I mean, you ask Bo, what's your most important stat? He'll say batting average. Carlos Correa last year was asked about this in MLB Network. Carlos, you're a smart guy. You look at a lot of numbers. What do you look at? I look at weighted runs created plus. I mean, that's a player talking. So I understand everybody wants somebody to pay for something.
Mm-hmm.
I get all that. And
I'm in that camp.
When you got 4 people involved in something that isn't working, it's understandable. Your first reaction is going to be, well, there's too many voices there. Look, I grew up watching baseball when you had 1 hitting coach, 1 pitching coach, a manager, and a bench coach. That's it.
Yeah,
and you had the first and third base coach, and you had a dude. You had a dude in the bullpen.
I think if they had a cleanup hitter and a run producer, it'd be working.
You could if they had a cleanup hitter and a run producer, you could add another 6 hitting coaches.
We'd be yelling and screaming about how good those 4 dudes are, and all 4 of them should get raises.
Yeah. Although when stuff looks the same for a couple of years in a row, I do wonder if maybe something needs to change.
It's not good to add all the time. It might be better to subtract.
Let's go to David in St. Albert.
That's a good question, though, Sheldon.
That is a good. It got us talking, Sheldon, which is
got
what we
Blair
want you to
fired
do.
up.
Well, it didn't get me fired up. Anyhow, David in St. Albert. Maybe he'll get me fired up.
I'm going to strike an almost optimistic tone.
All right, let's cut off David. I'm just kidding. Go ahead,
David.
David.
It's been a bad season. They're 2 games below 500 still. This is not what we expected. But a couple days ago, I think it was Jeff said on the air,
oh my God,
maybe there's some bit of information that, the brain trust in whatever the Magic City under Rogers Center is looking at that says they're a good team.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I find, if we're talking about blowing up the team, is who are the elite in the American League? Well, we've got Baltimore, who I think is the best team. We're 3-3 against them on the year. Well, if it's not Baltimore, maybe it's the Yankees. We're 2-1 against them on the year. What about our old rivals, the Seattle Mariners? We're 2-1 against them on the year. Now, I'm not going to mention our record against Kansas City this year, which is atrocious.
Probably smart.
Minnesota, not much better. But I certainly get it. If people are sitting trying to work out, do we blow up the team? Do we add pieces? What are we going to do? It's got to be tough for them to look at our record against the elite of the league and say, yeah, this team's just got nothing in the tank. We need to blow it up. So anyway, wondering what you guys think about that.
David,
Love the show. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, that's a really good call. Look, it's not. I've said this. It's not just as easy as blowing it up and starting over. I don't know. Is this? I mean, I'll ask you, Kevin. Could this city handle 3 years of last place Blue Jays as they tried to?
It'd be hard
to build up. Yeah, it's going to be awfully hard, especially when you've got a new stadium that you need to fill, and you've got you're a pretty substantial TV property. So there's that. There's the Bo and Vladdy thing contractually. Look, we could all see this. All of us saw this coming 3 or 4 years ago. You cannot be surprised where they are contractually with these guys. You just can't if you've been paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
The caller's point is well made. I don't think it's just simply a matter of let's move everybody out. Let's trade Bo for this. Let's trade Vladdy for this. Let's get 6 prospects in and make it work. I don't think that would sit well with ownership.
Yeah.
I don't think it would necessarily sit well with fans. It's sometimes and this is one of the issues I have with the front office is they're getting paid a lot of money to not be put in this position. And when I see stuff happening that's so predictable, that's what really frustrates me. Like none of this surprises me. None of what I'm seeing from this team surprises me. I'm a little surprised at Bo's year.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, what do I have to be surprised about? Starting pitching was great last year. It's not as good this year. Doesn't surprise me. You weren't going to have a repeat of last year. Bullpen's not as good this year as it was last year. Doesn't surprise me. Happens a lot of times with bullpens. That is what I find frustrating is the fact that a lot of this stuff could be foreseen. But I get David's point. It's just there's a lot of factors here. That this isn't the Miami Marlins. There are a lot of factors here that go into whether or not you blow this thing up. And I don't think right now you can. And I'm of the camp, and the Dan O'Dowd is the guy that talked about this on MLB Network. Yeah, let's leave aside Vladdy and Bo for now, because you don't have to do anything with them this year. But his point was Kikuchi, Danny Jansen, Jimmy Garcia. They're probably not going to be back next year. Those are the guys you ought to look at dealing to get something to help your team right now. And I'm not saying you move all of them at once, but if you're going to get nibbles on Yusei Kikuchi, I move him, and then I try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my pitching. That's the only way I can say it. But it's not, David's point is right. It's not just as easy as trading everybody because I can tell you there's no appetite in this city. And this is one thing I agree with Mark and Ross on. I just don't think there's any appetite in this city for a rebuild. I just don't think there is.
Yeah, the frustrating part is going into the offseason, everybody, even people that don't cover the Blue Jays or don't watch the Blue Jays all the time, knew that in the offseason they needed more hitters. They didn't get them.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money on one of the worst offenses in baseball, which for me is very confusing. So to the point that you just made, do you feel confident in the guys that you just mentioned that they could trade or should trade, that they will trade, because it almost makes too much sense?
Oh, anyhow. Let's bring in Shai Davidi.
I'm asking.
Yeah, let's bring in Shai Davidi, our MLB insider with Sportsnet. He drew the short straw and is covering the Oakland series. Now, what'd you do?
We shouldn't laugh.
What'd you do?
Who did you make mad?
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. Where are you staying? Are you staying in the one nice hotel left in San Francisco or what?
Basically, yes.
Yes.
You know what? I'm not that I'm looking forward to this, but this is, it's the last time, right? So it's a little send off right now for the Oakland Coliseum. And it's
Yeah.
It's weirdly interesting covering games there, right? Because
It is.
It's so bad. It's like it's completely different. It's like worse than minor league parks, and so it's a unique experience, and the games always seem to be interesting there. And obviously, the A's aren't what they once were, but hey, it's still Major League Baseball.
Do me a favor. Bring me back a cockroach from the press box, please.
I tell you what,
Or a raccoon.
I will not miss the mysteriously damp carpets.
No.
Nature, so.
Oh boy,
No.
No mystery, my friend.
Do you still
mystery.
have to walk when you take Bart there? Do you still have to walk over that bubbling puddle of black goo at the Western Colloidal Factory? Is that still there?
That I'm not certain of, but I do like the barbed wire on either side of that pathway, which makes you literally feel like you're walking into a prison.
Yeah, it is something else. Anyhow, we'll move on. The Western Colloidal thing was just this bubbling. It's like some sort of tar thing where construction companies have come to get tar, and you used to walk over it, and all of a sudden you hear this boop. There'd be this big black bubble that would bubble up, and I used to think it was a place that people were burying bodies and stuff like that. Anyhow, so you've reported that Spencer Horwitz is with the team. Do you have any idea what the corresponding move is? John Schneider, predictably, was absolutely of no use to us today in answering that question.
So, I mean, I've heard a name, but I don't have it solid enough to report it. So I'll just say at this point, I'm not 100% sure on that. But look, I think this is a move to get Spencer Horwitz here that's long overdue. And we thought last week when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was first penciled in at third base, you're like, okay, is this something that they're doing to maybe get Spencer Horwitz here at some point? And initially it was, okay, let's get Daniel Vogelbach a little bit more run. But I think ultimately the Blue Jays know that, Spencer Horwitz is he's done proving stuff at AAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
He very much looks like a major league player, and now it's his opportunity to prove it at a time where the Blue Jays need the production that he could potentially offer.
Shai, if he's going to play every day, where would he be? DH, second base, first base, put Vladdy at third. What do you think? All the above?
All of the above, I would think. I don't think there'll be a singular pathway. I'm curious to see how the second base thing is going to go, because when he first started to play his first or second game there or something like that, I talked to someone with the org, and they were pleasantly surprised. They were like, this looks much better than we thought it would, and this might have a chance to stick. Now, he's got like 80 or 90 innings of second base under his belt this year. Are you ready to say to him, all right, here, do this at major league speed, at the major league level, at a time where our team can't afford any mistakes? That's a big leap. So I wonder, maybe it's trying to find him a few spots to get some innings in at second base in lower leverage situations initially. Maybe at the end of the game that's decided one way or the other. But first base, they can get him some reps there with Vlad either at DH or at third, and left field on days when you're going to go with Dalton Varsho in center and David Schneider at second, then he can slot in there too. So there are certainly some options.
Shai, when you talk to people about him, have they said he's made adjustments? Doing what? I think it was Jeff that asked John about what he'd seen that he'd liked with Spencer, and he was saying he was hitting for more power. Well, I mean, his numbers say otherwise. Is there something that you've seen or somebody's told you that would tell the Blue Jays that if he comes up here, big part of the field, backspinning stuff, lots of doubles, run producer, is he screaming that because of some adjustment he's made?
Well, there was in the spring, he was trying to, drive the ball a little bit more. And so that's obviously part of it is intent. Part of it is a little bit how you're finishing your swing, where you're catching the ball, things of that nature. But I mean, he's not coming up here to hit 25 home runs, right? Mm-hmm. That's not his game. His game is driving balls with gaps, high exit velocity. It's not necessarily home runs, but he does hit some of them. But this is a incredibly disciplined hitter, controls the strike zone, doesn't chase, good bat to ball skills. and can give you some offensive impact. So that is what the Blue Jays want of him. And ideally, you could take his package and put Orioles Martinez's power in there as well. Then you'd really have something. That's not what it is. But the fact that he's a complete hitter and can do a bunch of different things, look, that'll help the offense. And I don't think they're bringing him here to be the savior for the offense, but it's just a little bit more production in the lineup. And the Blue Jays are just really trying to squeeze out any bit of production anywhere they can find it right now.
Shy, when do I start worrying about Bo?
It's hard, right? Like you think about, what was it, the 22 season where it was hot and cold like this for 4 months, and then August, September, he turned it on and had a monster finish. I don't know that you worry about him, right? Because at some point he's going to figure out. He just needs runway. I think the challenge is that the Blue Jays don't have as much production around him as they did back in that 22 season. And so you feel it a little bit more urgently right now than you might have back then. But I don't know that I necessarily worry about Bo, because he's got it. He's got the ability, he's got the tools to get himself out of these holes. He's done it before. He always seems to figure it out. And I think the safe assumption is that he'll figure it out once again.
Last question before I let you run. Do you have any idea how John may use his starting pitchers, or may decide on who starts on Sunday? And have you heard anything on Alek Manoah's visit to Dr. Meister?
No, I'm going to be picking around at the Alek Manoah question once we get to the ballpark here in the next half an hour or so. In terms of Sunday, I think a lot of that will depend on what happens tonight and tomorrow. Might have Trevor Richards as a part of that again, and Bowden Francis will obviously be handling some bulk duty again, and they can perhaps extend him a little bit beyond where he was last time in this outing as well. So that, for the time being, is set. Curious to also hear what the next steps are going to be for Yariel Rodriguez and how he ends up fitting this. So I don't think that he'd be an option for Sunday necessarily, because it would be a short rest between his outing, his rehab outing was it Wednesday, I believe, and Sunday. But the turn after that, I think that might be maybe a more realistic target for him.
Shy, really good of you to do this, man. Thanks so much. Enjoy Oakland.
Oh, yes. Enjoy it.
Right into the belly of the beast, guys. Should be fun.
Absolutely. Take care.
See you, buddy.
Well. Thanks, buddy. Travel safely. Shy Davidi, our MLB insider with Sports.
Dodging raccoons.
Raccoons in the press box. There, but I'm going to say this. Some tremendous concessions, like locally owned food places. Tremendous.
Outside the park or in the park?
In the park. Locally owned. They have a thing where there's a lot of local concessions, and it's good. I mean, that is a good eating area.
Yeah.
And the other thing with the hardcore athletics fans, the people that sit in the center in the outfield are great. They're great fans. But other than that, it's
challenging.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
It is challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Cotroneo is the Oakland A's play-by-play broadcaster, longtime A's play-by-play broadcaster. Mm-hmm. We'll talk to him about the A's, get his sense of how this team is holding up, considering most of the players in this team have no idea. I mean, I think they probably know where they're going to be a couple of years down the road, but no idea how they're going to get there. And now we hear that the owner doesn't want to play all his home games in Vegas. I mean, it's...
Man.
You almost get the idea they're just kind of making it up as it's going along.
Oh, wow.
And that never works out in baseball. Vince Cotroneo joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, 9:40 will be the first pitch tonight. The Jays and A's open a 3-game series. A couple of little items I want to get to. We mentioned Juan Soto and his forearm inflammation. He is in uniform tonight for the Yankees, not expected to start, but he's listed among the reserves. There had been some concern because the language that the Yankees used in discussing his injury was the same they used in discussing Jason Dominguez's injury, and he ended up undergoing surgery, but that's not the case with Juan Soto. So it really does seem very much as if he's day-to-day. The Dodgers and Yankees are playing tonight, and just something I had to throw out. If just a reminder of how big a deal Shohei Ohtani is. They are not only selling Shohei Ohtani jerseys in the Yankees gift shop at Yankee Stadium. They're selling a hat with Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani's number on it.
It's genius.
That is. But, I mean, that's just...
You can understand why the ownership for the Blue Jays was all in.
I know, but it's just... There you go. So I just imagine... Knowing what Yankees fans are like, I can just imagine the first person to show up in the bleachers wearing
a half hat.
A half hat. No bueno. Anyhow, let's bring in Vince Cotroneo. He's the Oakland A's play-by-play voice. Vince, thanks for joining us today. We were just, and I mean, as a longtime baseball announcer, I'm sure you're probably like me. You never thought you'd see a day where they'd be selling half and half hats at Yankee Stadium gift shop, did you? Whatever happened to the David Ortiz, Derek Jeter half and half hat?
Yeah, good to reconvene with you fellas. By the way, yeah, it's a different world. It's all about the merch, baby. It's what else can we market to get some of your dollars out of your pocket?
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely. Hey, listen, just how are things? How are the A's players adapting to whatever uncertainty there is out there right now regarding where they're going to be? I'm not talking about the nuts and bolts of the move, but just the A's players themselves. How are they handling the uncertainty?
I think Mark Kotsay has done an excellent job. I mean, there's, as you know, the story is well, been reviewed time and time again. They're moving to Sacramento next year. But I think two things. One, when they found that out in spring training, the word that Mark used was certainty, because there was a lot of not a lot of that leading up to that, and they're not really spending a whole lot of time worrying about it. I mean, they're just trying to focus on what is happening today on the field, try to be better at their jobs, and try to put together the kind of club that they feel like can get back to being a contender in the American League West. It's going to take some time. It is taking time, but I think they've done an excellent job of simply. While there's certainly, a lot of discussion about everything else off the field, they've done a very good job of bonding inside the clubhouse. And when they take the field, that's the only thing on their mind.
Vince, did the organization have a plan, like the Blue Jays in the spring training was saying, only swing at what you can do damage on? Like, we want to make sure we pitch down. We want to throw strike one. Does the organization for the A's preach something on an everyday basis when it comes to, like, what the Jays are trying to do?
Well, sure. I mean, delivering the message and having the message received and executed are three, very challenging things for every club. I think an example is what the A's just saw with the Seattle Mariners. They fired their bench coach and their guy that was part of their hitting group, and Brant Brown. And the sense was over there that his focus, his message was the strengths of the pitcher instead of the strengths of the hitter. And they basically just reversed that once he left 4 or 5 days ago, and their offense has relaxed. It's responded in kind. Now, for the A's, the message is clear. I mean, there's always been the response about, the Moneyball A's and taking walks and working counts, and all that stuff is well and good. But the A's are not about that. They are certainly in swing mode from the moment they step in the boxes. If it is a good pitch, like you say, to do damage on. The challenge that the A's have right now, Kevin, is that the A's are getting a lot of pitches in the zone. They're flat out missing. I mean, they're getting more strikes almost than any other team in baseball. They're being challenged more than any other team in baseball, and they're just not connecting. An example yesterday with Brian Wu, who's a local kid. He went to Alameda High School, about 5 minutes away from the Coliseum, and he threw 85, 87% fastballs. Now, they had good movement, 2-seam and 4-seam, but he threw 85 pitches, and 78 of them were fastballs, and the A's didn't score a run, and they have yet to score a run against Brian Wu going back to last year. So that's been a challenge, and I think they know that. But trying to find a way to get it going. I think as you look at the A's lineup, they're feeling more confident about the top 3 or 4 hitters, feeling more confident about 8 and 9. It's the middle of the lineup that's been really a lot of work in progress that is just not giving them the kind of consistency they need.
Vince, you mentioned Mark Kotsay. Do you think he's part of the future? Do you think that the front office is grading him on an everyday basis, however they would go about their grading system? I don't even know how you would do that with Oakland with the way you speak. I would think it'd be very hard. Do you think long term he's the future? When the A's are good, is Mark the manager? I think is the question.
Let me frame it this way. So this is his third season as the manager of the club. The first year, come to spring training out of the lockout, and 4 key members of his club, including the guy that's pitching against the A's tonight, Chris Bassett, were traded in rapid-fire succession. It was Bassett, and then it was Olson, and then it was Chapman, and then it was Manaea. And the A's got back, in theory, prospects that they thought could kind of replenish the A's minor league system and get to the big leagues and become vital members of the next movement to getting back into contention. And of that group, Shea Langoliers is the catcher, and that's really about it so far. I mean, Joey Estes has come up. He's done a nice job. He's made like 7 big league starts, so can't really judge him yet, although he has been competitive, but he's only 22 years of age. So that's something that is certainly on their side. Then the second year, the A's were grossly overmatched last year, and the numbers reflected it. I mean, they were 50-112, and they had every right to be that number. Their pitching couldn't get anybody out. They were not catching the ball. They were not hitting the ball. They used 24 starting pitchers. I mean, they started the year 6-26 and didn't really recover. This year, fast forward to the beginning of 24, I think is really the first year that you look at Mark as a manager of a club that's his, that he can kind of mold, that he can lead, that he could find ways to get improvement from. And there was a time the A's were 17-17 this year, and they also at that point had not made one single pitching move, and that's unheard of. From opening day until the first week of May, they didn't miss a spot in the rotation. They didn't make one change to the bullpen, and they were 17-17 and really kind of playing a little bit above their skis, but had consistency. Guys they knew they were counting on, both in the bullpen and certainly in the rotation. Then 4/5 of the rotation went on the IL, and that's just a tough thing to swallow. The other side of that very winded answer is I talk to scouts from other clubs, and they talk about their teams seeing the way the A's play, very competitive. They played 15 straight games now where the game's been decided by 3 runs or less. Mm-hmm. That was not happening last year. So they're competitive to the very end. And I think that is a reflection of Mark and the way he has the team ready to play.
Yep.
Vince, obviously there's a lot of focus. There has been a lot of focus on Mason Miller. That will continue, obviously, with the trade deadline approaching. But, every time I see a situation like this develop, I'm reminded of something when Felipe Alou was managing the Montreal Expos. He would always mention, he said, I don't understand how teams that are struggling but have an elite closer are in such a hurry to trade that elite closer, because he said, if I'm an organization that's trying to put something together, that's trying to give my players hope, nothing sucks the life out of you more than losing a 1-run game in the 9th inning after you've sweated and bled. You're not as good as the team across the field, but it's right there, and you lose it because you just don't have that arm at the back end of the bullpen. I'm just wondering, if you're looking at trying to create a culture and everything around the A's, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that Mason Miller's dealt, or do you think that they may just hang on to him?
I don't know if foregone conclusion is the right response. I would not be surprised if something does happen. And you make an absolutely spot-on observation, because I remember we're both old enough, Jeff, going back to when the Miami Marlins, then the Florida Marlins, had their inaugural season. Who's their closer? Brian Harvey.
Right.
And he was a guy that had success because, like you said, those games that you have the lead late, you've got to win those games, because the final piece of any puzzle for any team, whether you're veterans or a group of young players, and the A's have a mix of both, is knowing or expecting to win games. And part of that puzzle is knowing when you get to the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, you've been able to shorten the game. And the A's were able to do that for the first, 5.5 weeks, until there was an issue with Lucas Erceg, who's on the IL right now, and now Michael Kelly with the suspension because of the gambling issue. That's given the A's a couple of pretty big body blows to the back end of their bullpen. Mason's been outstanding, and it all started, on a Monday afternoon at Yankee Stadium when he went through the top of the order like knife through butter. And, like I said at the time on the air, if you make it here, you make it anywhere, because the world revolves around how you play against the Yankees. And he did it not once but twice against them at Yankee Stadium. So that's why this sudden attention came his way, aside from the fact that he throws 102 and he's got more pitches over 100 miles an hour than anybody in baseball. He's got 5 more years of control. He's had a history of injuries in the past. I do think teams would look at him not necessarily in the long term, but look at him like as our closer for the next year and a half, like the half of this year or the last 2-3 months of this year, and then looking into 2025. And that's what they're basing probably their evaluations on. If there have been discussions where the A's are saying, we want, prospect 1, 2, and 3 from your club, guys that are either in the big leagues or knocking on the door, and they have power, and they're blocked by certain guys, let's say at Baltimore or with the Dodgers, or pick another organization that has talent, but has young talent already ahead of them at the big league level. That's where the A's have to identify the path to go and create, for lack of a better term, frenzy on who makes the best offer for a guy like Mason Miller. They didn't have a chance to do that in spring training of 2022. It happened so fast, so furious, and had to be done so quickly. There wasn't a chance to bid Toronto against Cleveland, against Atlanta, against New York to make that happen. So they think if that's something they're going to do, they have the time to do it, and they got to hit. Giving up a talent like this, they definitely have to hit.
Yep.
Vince, really good of you to join us, my friend. Always great to talk to you. Be well.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, fellas. I'll see you in August.
Absolutely.
Okay. See you,
Look
buddy.
forward to it. Vince Cotroneo, the Oakland A's play-by-play.
It's great information.
He's
tremendous.
Vince is one of the best. Vince has been around for
sure, it can't be the
long
easiest thing to talk about a team like that on an everyday basis. And I wonder about the Mark Kotsay thing, right? It would be very hard to grade a manager on what?
Well,
that's the thing. What are you grading him on?
Yeah,
effort.
My first inclination was to look at Brandon Hyde, but that's such a unique situation, I think, because the Orioles were
plethora of talent,
right?
Yeah,
and
oozing.
But I just think, and I think this is I think this is a good thing. I think teams are a little, because there is so much involved in the decision-making process in baseball now. I think teams are more reluctant than they've been, or feel it's less correct to fire the manager compared to what it used to be, because I think that there is this idea that it's not just the manager making the decision. I don't know if it ever was, but I do know that previous teams I've covered, they certainly didn't have as many coaches. They didn't have as many analytics. I mean, it was just the game was different, and you really got the sense when you were firing a manager that there was a rationale behind it. I don't see that now because there are so many things involved in it.
Yeah, but you still have to grade him. Like, you'd still have to watch in-game moves and go, if I ever do give him talent, can he put the talent in the right spot at the right time? That's the question. How would you judge a manager on a team to – Austin Adams, I mean, he's pretty good in the bullpen with Mason Miller. Like, you might have 2 guys down there, and then you got everybody else.
This is where it gets.
That's all.
This is where it gets interesting too for Mark Kotsay, because if you go to Sacramento next year, there's going to be a lot of situations. Pardon me, a lot of similarities to what the Jays went through during the COVID year. And whatever people may say about Charlie Montoyo as a manager, it seems as if they were able to get through that whole situation pretty well.
Yeah, Back City will help.
That also has to be a positive reflection on the manager.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That it didn't fall apart.
That's fair.
It does.
Yeah,
it has to be.
That's fair.
And maybe that's the thing with Mark Kotsay.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
But I just I don't know. How do you judge a manager when he's so obviously shorthanded? Do you look at the progress of the young players? I would think that's one of the things I would do, is how at the end of the year, at the end of spending 8 months with Mark Kotsay, okay, maybe the team's in last place, but are my young players better? Have I seen progress? That, to me, if I was judging the Oakland A's, would be enough. At the end of the year, this guy's a better player. Now, it's not all on the manager, but if this guy had improved and I liked where he was, then why change anything?
I guess. I think that's more about the coaches than it is the manager. I mean, I've never seen a manager come in a batting cage with me when I was in the big leagues.
Again, that's you're asking how you judge a manager, and I'm saying if guys are getting better, what do the Oakland A's want? They're not going to win this year.
Yeah.
They're not going to go to the playoffs.
Sure.
What do you want if you're
Looking
the
to the
Oakland A's? I want my Shea Langeliers. I want my young guys. At the end of the year, when they do their exit interviews, I want to be able to say, hey, you had a good year. You know, that you're better here, you're better here, you're better here, you're better here. If that's the case, then I got to look at the manager and say, hey, you didn't gum up the works. Stay out of the way. Sometimes I think that's how you go about that's how you go about judging a manager.
It's not an easy call, though.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I mean, I'm sure it's how how he acts, how he talks to the media, how he handles failure.
See, that
it's
might
all
be,
those things that
that
go. I
might
mean,
be
he's
less
failed ever
of a-
since he's been there. Like, it's how you handle. I mean, he's a winner. He's played on some good big league teams. He's won in college.
Yeah,
like he's been used to winning forever. Now he goes to that team and he never wins.
The whole handling the media thing. I mean, in a market like Oakland, I don't think it matters.
I guess. Yeah.
You got like 2 papers.
Well, he will be leaving there.
Yeah, but that's not for a couple of years. It's not going to change in Sacramento. That's the thing. If you're the A's, you really don't have to make a decision on him because you're not going to Oakland or you're not going to Vegas if you ever get there for a couple of years.
Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves. Is your point?
Yeah, I just
maybe
see how the
see
how the team does the team play hard to the young guys.
You know how it is. It's like that thing that happened with Baltimore, right? Is Hyde going to be the guy when they're good? Right? I mean, it's a fair question, and will Oakland ever be good? That's another question.
Yeah. Well,
another question.
We forget. Not so long ago, that team was in the playoffs. The Oakland A's have punched above their weight for a long time. They have punched above their weight, and
maybe getting out of that stadium will help. Just morale, like she wanting to show up to the yard and just play and be a big leaguer. It ain't Oakland. It ain't that park. It's a different park. It's a different feel, and you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe that's, maybe you'll start to get some better talent in there. I don't know. Maybe I'm searching.
Yeah,
am I begging? I'm begging.
I still don't think. Again, it gets back to our free agents going to sign there, and
you got to pay them.
You got to pay them, but you also. If you've got a free agent with a family, you got to have an idea of where your team is going to be. But yeah, listen. This is Vince. The stuff that's going on with the A's, the important stuff is way off the field.
Yep.
I just think it's going to be. I think the only way you can judge Mark Kotsay is in how good the young players are. I do know this. He's well thought of around the. I mean, he was well thought of around the game.
Yeah.
Nobody was surprised when he was named manager.
No,
he was a guy that everybody had on their radar screen as a manager.
I have friends that are friends of his that speak very highly of him. Now, again, that can change when you lose as much as he's losing.
That's true.
So
find out who your friends are. Quickly.
You can get punched right in the jaw a lot.
All right, that is it for us. We will be back Monday from 4 to 6 Eastern on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet.
Not a bad job by you. Good job today. It's Friday.
Where did that come from?
I just vote of confidence, Jeff.
I'm still trying to figure out your thing about you wishing that I could just experience hitting a home run once
in my life. It's the greatest feeling you'll ever feel, Jeff.
Ever. That's it for us. Have a great weekend.